Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Dinh, and welcome to this talk, The Easy Path to Privacy, Privacy for Normal People. So, some goals that I have for this talk is it's for everybody. And I understand that many of you are technical, but maybe you can learn some new things from this talk, as well as convince maybe some other people in your life, family and friends, that maybe aren't so convinced about privacy. And also recommend some effective tools. So specifically, we're going to recommend tools that I've tested myself and that you can get the biggest bang for your buck using. So a little bit about me. My name is Andrew Dinh. I've been interested in digital privacy for a little while now, since high school. I even taught a class about digital privacy at my university. For my work life, I've worked previously as a software engineer at Apple and currently working at OpenSSL Corporation as a software engineer. So let's get right into it. So first, why privacy matters. So let's talk about who are we protecting ourselves from. And so we'll start from small. There's people that may be targeting people individually, whether that may be for blackmail, for spam, maybe trying to steal your identity, try to use your information to purchase things, or maybe use your accounts without you knowing. And so they might be going after individual people or just trying to find one person that they can take advantage of. And then as we go further up, we have something called surveillance capitalism. And so this is, imagine, maybe a retailer out there wants to get information about a person to have targeted ads for them, maybe if you're a student, if you have a child, et cetera. And so they're collecting all this information to essentially make money from that information. And finally, we have mass surveillance. So this is on an even broader scale. Maybe a government wants to collect information on all the goings of some of its citizens or other people in this country. Maybe they might say it's for national security reasons, or they're trying to prevent illegal activity from happening. And so they're collecting all this information that they can, and then looking if they need to or want to, they'll be able to find all this information about you that they know. And so it can range. So basically, the people out there trying to get information about you can range from just individual to on a much broader scale. And so a lot of people, when talking about privacy, they'll respond with, "I have nothing to hide." And I think it's a misconception because you probably do have something to hide, whether it be medical records, religious beliefs, your private photos and videos. And even if you don't, maybe you're like really okay with all these things being public out there. There's a lot of people either around you or maybe your future self that may, may have some information that you don't necessarily want people to know. For a lot of us, maybe when we were kids, teenagers, or just anytime before, we might have posted something online that we realized that maybe this isn't really represent who I am now. We don't want this to be out there, and so, or maybe somebody else shares something with you that you realize you don't have the way to make sure it's safe from people out there who might want the information. And so it's more about the option to share what you want when you want. So instead of everything being out there by default, and you having to maybe have to go out and retroactively take it back, it's instead you have the option. Maybe you want to share a photo, you want to share the certain information to the world, then you have the option to do so if you would like. And everybody's situation is different. And so whichever privacy alternatives that you take, there's no one solution that fits all. And so it depends on your unique situation, depending on your job, depending on where you live, et cetera. You maybe choose different things for your own situation. And I want to mention something called the Swiss cheese model. So imagine all these slices of cheese. They have a lot of holes in them in various places. And if you try to poke a hole through it, go through one of the holes, then in one slice, there's many places to go through. But as you put more next to each other, it's hard to get a straight line through. And the same idea in security and privacy. The more layers you have, the more likely you're able to protect yourselves from nefarious actors out there. So essentially, more layers, the better. And each of these layers has trade-offs. So maybe in one alternative, you may get more privacy, but you might have to you might have to give up some convenience in the meantime. So there's always pros and cons for whatever tool you decide to use. And so why use private alternatives? So of course, the more tools use better privacy in various aspects of your life. But beyond that, also, so privacy as a selling point. So a lot of times, there's a saying that if it's free, you are the product. Of course, there's exceptions, but this is generally the case. A lot of things, if you're using them for free, and a lot of times it takes a lot of money to run these services and keep it up to date, et cetera. And so a lot of times companies will maybe be using your information for selling ads or directly selling it to data brokers in order to make money to continue creating the software. And so when you choose to adopt alternatives and actually pay for it, or at least be using it, then it signals to companies and just people out there that, yes, privacy can also make you money other than just selling information or selling ads. That this is a valid point that if they're supporting your privacy, they can also still be profitable in the process. Another benefit of using a private alternative is that there's benefits beyond just privacy. So for example, one thing I'll be mentioning later is password managers. And essentially, you can use one password to remember all of them for every login that you use. And it's really convenient to use a password manager because if at any website I go to, it'll automatically suggest that I fill it in, and I don't have to do anything. And it makes life a lot easier for all these websites out there. And finally, safety in numbers. So what I mean by this is that there's people in many different situations, and some might need to be using these private and secure alternatives more than others. For example, journalists or people in countries that have more surveillance on the citizens. And so if they're the only ones using these private alternatives, then they might stick out like a sore thumb and be very obvious to maybe governments or others that they're possibly, they maybe need to be looked into and they're doing something wrong. But the more people that are using it, just average daily people, then that can help them blend into the crowd, and it's not super suspicious. If everybody's using this offer, then another person using it who actually really needs it, they blend in with the crowd, and they're not super suspicious. So it definitely helps to protect everybody. So now into the recommended privacy tools. These are ones that I've tried and that I highly recommend to anybody, whether technical or not. So first, privacy settings. So pretty much any kind of software you use will have configurable privacy settings. It's easily just under settings and usually under privacy and security settings tab. And so no download required. And you can usually see exactly when you toggle some of these options, sometimes you can usually see the trade-offs that you'll be giving up when you enable some of these options. And while you're at it, I would also recommend enabling multi-factor authentication. So this is essentially after you log in with email and password, you might get an SMS or email or some other form. And there's definitely benefits to which one you choose, but just having one can definitely improve your security when logging into websites. Next, I want to be talking about an ad blocker. So not just an ad blocker, but also a content blocker for ads and trackers. So as you browse the internet, many websites will have trackers embedded on them. And so the most popular one being Google. So they can see when you're visiting many different unrelated websites. And depending on the tracker, they can basically retrace your entire session on the website. They can tell a lot about you, especially if they're correlating it with other websites that you visit around the web. And so having a blocker that blocks this is, really great for privacy in that now you don't have this random third party knowing all these websites that you visit. So I recommended uBlock Origin and corresponding uBlock Origin Lite. And also for all these tools, I'll have a little note about whether it's free or paid or maybe both. Next, I want to talk about an attack called credential stuffing. So a lot of people, might use the same email and password for many different services. It's hard to remember a lot of passwords, so it's easy just to create one that's a password that's very secure and just use that in a lot of different places. The problem is that not all services may keep your password well protected. And so if even just one of these is leaked to a hacker, they're able to use this and spam many different websites with thousands of logins from many different people. And so, like, as long as just one service that you use is compromised, then all the rest of them can be compromised as well. And you can check this for yourself using this website, Have It Been Pwned. If you enter your email, it will check for you whether your email has been compromised in one of these known leaks. And so the best way to counter this is using a password manager. So it allows you to generate, save, and autofill strong passwords. And allows you to securely store other things like credit cards or maybe other things associated with a website like passkeys and backup codes. Another benefit is that it prevents phishing attacks. So a phishing attack is when you log into a website that, say, looks like Google, and you enter your username and password, but then you realize afterwards, oh, it's not actually. And so then they can use your credentials on the actual website and get into your account. And so a password manager, it links your login with the website. And so if you go to a phishing website and you see that it doesn't pop up, it's kind of like a red flag, like, oh, maybe something's going wrong here. I should look more into it. Also, it's important that it's cross-device, so that whatever device that you use, if you like using terminal, if you're using like your phone, your laptop, browser, it'll be able to sync everywhere, and you can use it from wherever you need. And so I use and recommend Bitwarden. And also, if you pay for Bitwarden, has some extra features like TTP, which are the 6-digit codes for 2FA that reset every 30 seconds, share passwords with multiple users. And if you're a developer, it has, you can use it from your terminal. You can store SSH keys. And for businesses, they have a whole line of products for businesses. So they provide enterprise support. And also, you can use it within your CI, which is actually what we use at OpenSSL. I also want to mention about choosing a password. So I would definitely recommend passphrases, which are kind of a special type of password, because they're easy to type and remember. As you can see in this example, but essentially it's a few words put together. And I like to do it in how is an example. I put $ in between, capital letters, and adding a number. And this pretty much passes any sort of password validation out there. So definitely would recommend using a passphrase over a password. All right, next, recommending tools for instant chat. So this is for communicate with whoever in your life, just like as a normal messenger like WhatsApp or whatnot. So it's important that it just works, because as for any instant chat, it's important that people are actually going to be using it. If it's hard to use, hard to set up, maybe it just doesn't work, people are just going to stop using it. So it's important that it just works. Also, end-to-end encryption is also important, which basically just means if I send a message to somebody, only me and that person is able to see that message. Nobody in between can see what exactly is in those contents. And also important, minimal metadata. So metadata is the information about the message itself, who you're sending it to, who's it from, the time it's sent, kind of attachments, etc. And so as an example, so the two I recommend are Signal and Element. And Signal is really cool because they've worked really hard to collect as minimal metadata as possible. So they have a page on the website about when requested by courts to give information about certain users, literally the only two pieces of information that they're able to provide about the user is the first time that the user signed up and the last time they connected. And they have no other information about the user, which I think is really cool, and how they designed their service to collect as minimal information as possible. All right, next, so browser. Most people will be using Google Chrome, but there are a lot of other ones out there that aren't just like siphoning up your data and have good privacy by default. So here's a few. Brave, Firefox, and Safari are generally good for most users. These all have built-in privacy protections. Some more than others. For example, Brave will have these content blockers that will block ads and fingerprinting, and et cetera. And a lot of times these will have really easy ways to import from your old browser and just work very seamlessly. And a search engine. So of course, most people are using Google, but I would also recommend these three different ones: DuckDuckGo, Startpage, and Brave Search. Like start page is actually basically using Google, but in another, like without going through Google. And Brave Search is already built into, by default, into the Brave browser. And so all of these are great. That being said, result quality can vary. If you need a basic search like third president of the United States, these would be great. But for maybe a result like best restaurants near me, it might not work so well. And so, as I said, with any privacy tool, there are trade-offs with using it. But these also have benefits. For example, DuckDuckGo has a tool called Duck.ai, which is a private LLM. So you can just go to their website, and if you like using ChatGPT, you can instead use this tool from DuckDuckGo, which is free to use and private. They do not associate your queries with any user. And so those are all the tools that I definitely recommend to any individual out there. They're easy to use, and they can be adopted by people of non-technical or technical backgrounds. But I also do have some other recommendations for just things I wanted to mention in this talk. So first, we have VPN. I used to see lots of ads for VPNs, tied in their privacy and how they're great for that. But they're really not as great as everybody believes. They do have benefits, but they're no silver bullet. So essentially, a VPN is just a tunnel. Usually your internet traffic comes through your home. Your internet service provider can see all that traffic, as well as the enemy in between. And instead, with VPN, you just encrypt your traffic to another place, and it goes from there. And so then you end up trusting your VPN provider. And actually, it was proven that a lot of times, especially for free VPNs, they actually sell a lot of this information to governments or companies. So you really have to trust if you're going to use a VPN, approach a VPN. Yeah, these are both good, and they really try to make privacy selling point and making sure that promising that they won't be selling your data and having a no logging policy. And next, I was talking about email aliases. So an email alias forwards messages to your email. So how this works is, say I have these 3 different services, Facebook, Amazon, and this random newsletter, and I sign up to it with a different email. So it's facebook@mydomain.com, etc. And what happens is that when one of these services sends an email to that one of my aliases, it actually all forwards to my actual email. None of them know what my actual email is, and if I want to, I can respond back to those emails, and it'll look like it's coming from the alias, which is really great. Like they won't know my email, and they don't need to know. And say, for example, this third service here, they start spamming me with a bunch of emails that I cannot unsubscribe to, even though I've asked very politely. What I can actually do is disable it for good. And anytime they try to send an email, it just gets blocked completely. And they don't know my actual email, so they'll keep on trying sending it to the old alias, and then nothing will happen. So this is really great, not even just in terms of privacy, just about quality of life. So yeah, definitely really beneficial. So I already mentioned aliases can be disabled. And also another benefit is they can forward to multiple email addresses. So for example, I sign up to like a newsletter that I think should forward to all my family members, and I can easily set that up in the service to one email immediately gets forwarded to everybody in my family. And so if there's a few different ones out there I'd recommend. I currently use Simple Login, but Addy.io is great. And also, if you have a subscription to iCloud Plus, they have a feature called Hide My Email, which allows you to sign up stuff with like a valid iCloud email, which will forward to your actual email. And so there are many, many more tools out there. In one talk, there's not enough time to go over all these different ones. Everything from, for example, data removal services. There's a lot of information out there. You can request these companies to delete information. Operating systems, big fan of Linux, and a lot of other ones out there. And so if you have any questions about any of these tools, feel free to ask me about it today or any other time. And so thank you, everybody, for coming to my talk. If you have any questions, please let me know. Here's a couple of different resources if you're interested. So the privacy guides and the new oil, these are two different websites that will go much more into detail about these topics that I mentioned, as well as many other ones out there. And here's some contact information that I have, my email and website and LinkedIn. So thank you very much, everybody. Yep. Yeah, so if there's any questions, yeah, okay, he has a microphone for you.
About those alternative search engines, you didn't mention Search NG with the unpronounceable name. So you might say something about it maybe if you want.
Yeah, yeah, so I am aware of it. So it's a meta search engine, right? And that, I believe how it works, essentially, it'll query many different search engines, and it'll aggregate it in one place. And so the idea is that you're not tied to just one search provider. It'll combine all the results into one place. And so maybe you're not, maybe one search engine is trying to convince you of a certain way of thinking or something. The idea is that if you pull it from many places, then it's a much more unbiased result. Yeah. Yeah, also private for that. You can also, I think, run it locally. Yeah, exactly. So it's also a great alternative. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thanks. I don't have a question. I have a warning. Don't use these services if you don't want American companies to send you a message that you need to provide them your government ID. Because it happened to me, for example, with Meta, they didn't allow me to access my settings when I used. I think it was NordVPN, and I was blocked from LinkedIn for using AdBlocker. Do you block Origin? So if you don't want this to happen to you, please don't do it. At least disable this for the services that you need to use. For example, as I said, LinkedIn, Meta, Facebook, they will ban you if you use these services if they find out. And also I have a question, which is about Bitwarden. Are you using PIN or always logging with the master password? Because if you use PIN, then the blob is actually stored, the blob is actually stored like secure with your PIN and not the master password. So if some tool has access to your home directory, which, for example, I don't know, nowadays agentic ADEs have, you can expose all of your passwords, basically, if you have a weak PIN. Do you use PIN or do you use master password? And what would you recommend in this case, nowadays?
I mean, of course, it's a trade-off. Like, if something has access to your home directory, it probably has access to a lot of other things. I mean, personally, I use a PIN. And the more shortcuts you have for for logging in, it might be easier for a hacker to get in. And it's all about the trade-offs. Actually, I mostly log in with Touch ID or similar. I also trust that that works effectively. But yeah, actually, I didn't know about the. So it's sort of unencrypted in your home directory, or. Okay.
The master password is actually also stored on the disk inside the encrypted blob. In that case, if it is like with PIN, because it stays on your device.
Okay. Yeah, of course, PIN is only the four numbers, right? So if somebody did have access to your computer, whether it's an application you just have or somebody is able to get a virus or something, yeah, a PIN would be much easier to brute force, especially. So yeah, it's just about what kind of trade-off that you'd like to have. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, okay, we have a question here.
Thank you very much for all your recommendations. I want just ask what is exactly payment masking and some examples, please, if you can provide. Thank you.
So yeah, on this many more page, I mentioned payment masking. So this is when you use a credit card that's not actually your credit card. So there's some services out there that provide it. So for example, one called privacy.com. You associate it, you link your bank account, and what they'll do is they'll give you these like fake credit, well not fake credit cards, but you can sign up to a service with it, and it'll charge your bank account, and then afterwards, you can disable it, or maybe you can link the credit card only to that company. And so if it gets leaked, those credit card details, then another company or hacker can't use that information. And so this is really great for that. And you don't necessarily have to use a separate service. For example, some banks will allow you to create these virtual credit cards that you can use elsewhere. And so you don't have to actually give out your actual credit card information. So same benefits. If it's leaked, it's fine. You can lock them, etc. Mm-hmm. Yeah. OK. Yeah. OK. That's everything. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to this talk.